My name is Shoaib Roy. This is the first of 3 videos as part of my contribution to the Digital Health Conference later on this week on the 29th of June in Leeds. I will be talking on the day about the Maps and Apps exercise, which was a crowdsourcing exercise to try and understand what was going on across the NHS from a smartphone and apps perspective. So in the next couple of minutes I'm going to talk about where the topic came from, what happened to get it moving. I'm going to try and talk about 2 or 3 key issues and try and drive into a couple of areas of detail. So coming to the chase, Maps and Apps was the product of a whole bunch of luck and opportunistic follow-up. A throwaway comment about there being an app for that at the end of a meeting with some interesting people resulted in a follow-up meeting with Stephen Hale and Tim Lloyd, who were then both at the Department of Health, though Tim has now moved. And the outcome of that meeting was this idea that we would use idea scale to try and gather ideas about the apps that were being used across the NHS. We went from back of an envelope to functioning project in no time, which was fantastic and unusual, I gather, for the way these things usually happen. And but at the heart of this was the idea that we had an extremely limited understanding of what was actually happening across the NHS with respect to the use of apps and smartphones and maps to help people understand their own care, but also how clinicians are using them to try and improve outcomes. And there did seem to be a fairly direct link to the overall messaging and motivation of the reforms at the moment. But there's one area that I'd like really to drill into in these opening comments about Maps and Apps, and that was that it did seem to go really well, the project. I remember a meeting when Tim and I were very concerned about whether or not we'd have embarrassing low levels of participation, but really the opposite happened. And when I look back at it, I think about actually the work of people like Helen Bevan on social movements, and I think that something we did well, and to reference some of Helen's work, is that we really communicated in a way using social media that fitted in with the values and the beliefs and the experiences and the behaviours of people that are passionate about digital technology, about disruptive innovation, about maps and apps and smartphones. And so I think we solved a problem with Maps and Apps. We solved a problem that needed to be solved because we started to understand the scale of the problem or the opportunity that we were about to try and understand with the role of smartphones.